Mark lived on the edge of the colony town, where the streets turned into dust and the air smelled of metal and rust. His home was small, almost forgotten, but under the floorboards, he had something no one else in the colony cared about. A workshop. Hidden from officials, hidden from traders, it was filled with scraps of old machines, half-working engines, and wires hanging from the ceiling like vines. Every night when the colony lights went dim, Mark worked. His hands were rough, his clothes stained with oil, but his mind was sharp. He built things from broken parts, tools, small drones, even strange devices that others thought useless. To most, he was just another quiet man with no family. But to Mark, the workshop was his world, his secret. One evening, while walking through the market, Mark heard a small voice. A girl was sitting by a wall, her skin pale blue and marked with glowing lines. She was blind, her eyes cloudy, and she held out her hands for food. Most people ignored her. Some laughed, some pushed her away. The colony was not kind to the weak. Mark stopped. He saw the fear in her face and the way her hands shook. She whispered in a soft, alien accent, "Please, just a little." Mark hesitated. He had little food himself, but something inside him made him give her the bread he had saved. She touched it carefully, then bowed her head. "Thank you, human," she whispered. That night, Mark could not forget her face. He returned to his workshop, but his mind was distracted. The girl's cloudy eyes haunted him. She was young, no older than 12, and yet she had been left to beg in the dust. He thought of all the machines he had built, all the devices he had fixed, and an idea came to him. "What if I build her something?" he whispered to himself. He had once studied old Earth designs, visors and implants used to help the blind. None of it was perfect, but with alien tech around the colony, maybe he could try. He searched his workshop, pulling out old lens casings, energy cells, and a cracked neural interface. Days passed as he worked. He soldered wires until his fingers burned. He adjusted the shape of the visor again and again, testing it against the dim light of his workshop. Sometimes the device sparked, sometimes it died completely, but he did not stop. Outside, the colony carried on with noise and trade, but inside the hidden workshop a human built something that should not exist. Finally, after many sleepless nights, he held the prototype in his hands. It was rough, the casing dented, the glass uneven, but it hummed with power. The visor connected to a small crystal he had found years ago, alien in design, glowing faintly when touched. Mark did not know its origin, but it worked better than any battery. The next morning he searched for the girl. She was sitting in the same spot, her head low. People walked past her as if she were invisible. Mark knelt and spoke softly. "Come with me." She hesitated, her hands trembling. "Why?" she asked. "Because I can help you," he replied. She followed him, her steps careful. When they reached the workshop, her cloudy eyes widened at the sounds of machines humming. "What is this place?" she whispered. "My secret," Mark said. "But today it is yours too." He gently lifted the visor and explained, "This might let you see." Her breath caught. She reached out, her fingers brushing the edges of the device. "No one has ever tried. Not for me," she whispered. Mark helped her place the visor on her head. The device clicked softly. Then, for a moment, nothing happened. Mark felt fear crawl into his chest. Had he failed? But then, the visor glowed, the crystal pulsed, and the girl gasped. Her cloudy eyes shifted, light reflecting off them for the first time. I can see shadows," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I can see light." Mark's heart pounded. He adjusted the visor, tuning the settings. Slowly, the shadows sharpened, colors formed, and the girl's lips parted in wonder. "You," she whispered, staring at him for the first time. "You're human." She laughed, a sound full of joy, and spun clumsily, touching everything around her. The broken tools, the glowing wires, even the old chair. I can see, she cried again and again. Her voice filled the workshop, echoing against the metal walls. Mark watched her with a tired smile. For once he felt he had done something that mattered. But deep in the visor, the crystal pulsed brighter, sending out a faint signal no one in the workshop noticed. Far away, beyond the colony skies, something ancient stirred. And in the darkness of space, eyes turned toward the small hidden workshop where a blind alien girl had just seen for the first time. The girl sat in the corner of Mark's workshop, her small hands gripping the edge of the table. The visor still glowed faintly on her face. Its cracked casing looked fragile, but inside, energy hummed like a heartbeat. She turned her head slowly, her cloudy eyes now reflecting the shimmer of light. I can see you, she whispered. Her voice was soft, full of wonder. Your face, your hair, even the dirt on your hands. She laughed, a trembling laugh as tears slid down her cheeks. Mark leaned against the workbench, exhaustion heavy on his body, but pride warming his chest. He had not slept in 2 nights, yet the moment felt worth every hour. Easy, he said gently. Your eyes are still learning. Don't push too hard. The girl ignored his warning. She stood wobbling as she looked around the cluttered workshop. Every tool, every wire, every spark of light was a treasure to her. She touched objects and whispered their shapes aloud, as if memorizing the world. Circle, square, sharp, smooth. Her hands and eyes moved together. What is your name? Mark asked after a while. She paused, her eyes lowering. Lyra, she said quietly. At least, that is what my mother once called me before she... Her voice broke, and she shook her head, refusing to finish. Mark didn't press. He only nodded. Lyra, he repeated. Then this visor is yours now, Lyra. It belongs to you. Lyra's face lit up. No one has ever given me anything, she said. Why? Mark did not know how to answer. He had asked himself the same question last night. Why had he worked so hard for a girl he didn't know? Maybe because he had grown tired of fixing broken machines that meant nothing. Maybe because for once he wanted to fix something that mattered. You deserve to see, he finally said, his voice rough but steady. For a few hours the workshop felt like another world. Lyra laughed as she discovered colors. She touched a broken lamp and cried out at the warm yellow glow. She looked at an old poster Mark had pinned to the wall, faded earth skies painted in blue and white, and whispered, beautiful. But Mark's joy was cut short when he noticed his scanner blinking red. Strange waves pulsed from the visor, spreading like ripples in water. He frowned and tapped the device, trying to read the signals. It was broadcasting something he had not programmed. He glanced at Lyra. She was too busy watching, the sparks of a welding torch he had left on the table. The light danced in her eyes. She giggled like a child seeing fireflies for the first time. She did not notice the faint hum growing louder in the crystal inside her visor. Later, Mark took Lyra out into the colony streets. She held his hand tightly, her steps unsure but excited. For the first time, she didn't stumble blindly. Her head turned in every direction, drinking in the sights she had never known. The market was alive with voices, smells, and colors. Traders shouted prices. Children ran between stalls. Machines clanked as workers repaired ships. Lyra spun in place, her eyes wide. So much, she whispered. I never knew the world was so big. Some people noticed her glowing visor. They frowned, whispering to each other. A blind beggar girl suddenly walking with sight. It drew unwanted attention. An old alien merchant, his horns cracked with age, stopped them near a spice stall. His eyes narrowed on the visor. That crystal, he hissed under his breath. Where did you get it, human? Mark stiffened. Scrap pile, years ago. Why? The merchant shook his head slowly. That is no scrap, foolish human. Do you know what you have awakened? His eyes darted nervously around. The signal has already gone out. They will come. Who will come? Mark asked. But before he could get an answer, the merchant stepped back into the crowd, vanishing like smoke. Mark pulled Lyra closer, unease creeping into his chest. Her joy dimmed as she noticed his face. "Is something wrong?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Nothing. Just stay close." That night, the colony's power flickered, lights dimmed, generators groaned, and shadows stretched across the streets. From his workshop window, Mark saw ships flying low in the desert, their outlines dark against the stars. He tightened his jaw. Inside, Lyra sat cross-legged, staring at the glowing crystal inside the visor when she removed it for the first time. "It sings," she whispered. "I can feel it humming inside me." Mark crouched beside her. "It's not safe," he said firmly. "Don't use it unless I'm here." But Lyra looked up at him with eyes that now sparkled faintly with the visor's light. "I think it was made for me," she said. Her words were innocent, but they made Mark's chest tighten. He turned away, restless. Outside, the desert winds carried whispers. Strangers in black armor moved through the colony streets asking questions. Soldiers who never visited such a poor town were suddenly everywhere. Mark's hands clenched. He knew the old merchant had been right. Something had been awakened in his hidden workshop, and now, something powerful was coming to take it back. The next morning, the colony market was alive with noise. Ships landed on the far platform. Traders shouted about prices, and the smell of oil mixed with spices filled the air. Lyra held Mark's hand tightly, her steps still unsure, but her glowing visor made her bold. For the first time, she walked without stumbling. Her eyes darted to every color and movement. She laughed when she saw children chasing a ball made from old cloth. She stopped to touch bright fruit at a stall, her face lighting up as if she had discovered treasure. Mark smiled faintly, but his mind was heavy. He noticed people staring at Lyra's visor, some with curiosity, some with suspicion. He kept his voice low. "Stay close. Don't talk too much." Lyra frowned but nodded. She was too busy discovering the world to argue. For her, the colony that had once been only darkness was now a storm of life and color. As they moved deeper into the market, a strange stillness touched the crowd. An old alien merchant, tall and thin with cracked horns and pale eyes, stepped in their path. His clothes were ragged, but his presence heavy. "You there," he croaked, pointing a long finger at Mark. His eyes slid to the visor, glowing faintly. On Lyra's head, his face darkened. "You are the one, the foolish human who woke it." Mark froze. "What do you mean?" The old alien's voice was low but sharp. "That crystal is not yours to use. It is not a toy for broken machines. It carries an old signal, one that was sealed long ago. And now the echo has spread. They will come." Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Who will come?" The alien's eyes shifted to Lyra. His lips tightened. "Soldiers, hunters, maybe worse. Do you think no one heard the light in her eyes? She is not just a blind girl anymore. She is a key." Lyra trembled, her small hand gripping Mark's arm. "A key to what?" she whispered. The old alien shook his head. "I dare not say. My tongue would be cursed if I speak it. But human, listen well. Hide her or lose her." Before Mark could ask more, the merchant backed into the crowd. His shape swallowed by the market noise. It was as if he had never been there. Mark's jaw tightened. He looked down at Lyra, who stared at him with wide, fearful eyes. "Mark," she whispered. "What if he was right? What if something is coming?" He knelt, placing both hands on her shoulders. "Then I'll face it," he said firmly. "But I won't let anyone take you. Do you understand?" She nodded, but her eyes searched the sky, already uneasy. That evening, the warning began to feel real. The colony lights flickered. Power grids groaned as if something drained them. People muttered in fear. Some said smugglers had landed. Others whispered about soldiers seen in the desert. From his workshop window, Mark watched strange shapes moving across the horizon, dark silhouettes against the dying sun. They were too organized to be traders, too quiet to be merchants. Inside, Lyra sat near the workbench, staring at the glowing crystal inside her visor. She whispered, "I hear it again, the humming. It feels alive." Mark crossed the room quickly and pulled the visor away from her, placing it on the table. "Enough, it's not safe." Lyra frowned. "But it feels like it knows me, like it was made for me." Mark shook his head. Maybe that's the problem. Night came heavy. The colony streets grew quieter, but Mark's unease grew stronger. He checked the locks twice, powered his drones, and loaded a plasma tool he had turned into a weapon. His hands moved fast, but his thoughts raced faster. He thought of the old merchant's words. They will come. And then, as if summoned by those words, soft footsteps echoed outside the workshop. Shadows shifted against the door. Lyra's breath caught. Her small hand reached for Mark. They're here, she whispered. Mark motioned for silence. He grabbed a wrench in one hand, his makeshift weapon in the other. The footsteps stopped, followed by a deep, mechanical voice outside. Human engineer, it said, calm but heavy. We know what you built. We know who the girl is. Hand her over and you will live. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Her voice was barely a whisper. Mark, don't let them take me. Mark tightened his grip on the weapon, his voice steady though his heart pounded. Stay. Behind me, Lyra. Outside, the sound of armor shifting, the heavy thud of boots on the ground, and then another voice, sharp and commanding. Open the door or we will break it. Mark glanced once at the visor on the table, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. He knew then that his life had changed forever. The soldiers had come. The night outside Mark's workshop was not silent anymore. The sound of boots crunched against gravel, slow and deliberate. Shadows moved across the thin cracks of light under the door. Lyra pressed her back against the wall, her small body trembling. Mark raised a finger to his lips, warning her to stay quiet. His heart beat fast, but his mind was already planning. He knew these were not common guards, not bounty hunters. The way they moved, the way their voices carried through the walls, these were trained soldiers. Last warning, human, a deep voice called. Open the door or we open it for you. Mark's hand tightened around his weapon. It was nothing more than a plasma cutter he had reshaped into a gun. Its energy core was unstable, but it could burn through armor at close range. He had one. Chance, maybe two. Lyra whispered. Mark, they'll kill you. Her voice shook. They want me, not you. He shook his head firmly. I don't hand over children to killers. There was no more time. A heavy crash echoed through the workshop. As the door rattled under the force of a metal boot, Mark pulled Lyra toward the back room, guiding her behind crates of old parts. Stay here, don't move until I tell you. Her cloudy blue eyes shimmered with tears, but she nodded, clutching the visor tightly in her hands. Another crash shook the door, then silence. For a moment, Mark thought they had stopped, but then a faint hiss filled the air. Gas seeped under the cracks. Curling like snakes across the floor, Mark cursed under his breath. They were flushing him out. He grabbed a small control device from his belt and pressed a button. Immediately, the walls of the workshop came alive. From hidden panels, drones buzzed out, small metal spheres armed with sparks and blades. They hovered near the door, ready to strike. The lock shattered with a blast. The door flew open, and the soldiers stepped inside. 4 figures in black armor, their helmets shining with red visors. They moved as one, scanning the room with calm precision. The first soldier raised a weapon, but before he could fire, Mark's drones attacked. Sparks flashed. One drone slammed into a soldier's chest, sending him stumbling back. Another spat a burst of flame, lighting the room with sudden fire. Human tricks, one of the soldiers growled, swatting a drone aside with a heavy gauntlet. The others spread out, methodical, unshaken. Mark fired, his plasma weapon. The shot burned through the armor of the closest soldier, dropping him with a scream. The others turned instantly, their rifles glowing with charged energy. Mark dove behind a workbench as bolts of plasma ripped through the air. Metal shattered, sparks flew, and the workshop filled with smoke and fire. In the chaos, Lyra pressed her hands against her ears. Tears streaming down her cheeks, she whispered, "Please stop, please." The visor in her grip pulsed brighter, as if answering her fear. Mark rolled out from cover, firing another shot. It clipped one soldier's shoulder, spinning him sideways. But before Mark could take aim again, a strong blow slammed into him. One soldier had crossed the room faster than he expected. The armored fist struck his chest, sending him crashing against the wall. Pain shot through his ribs. His weapon clattered to the floor. The soldier stepped closer, weapon raised for the final strike. Then a sudden flash filled the workshop. The visor in Lyra's hands burst with light, blinding white that cut through, smoke and shadow alike. The soldiers froze, their visors flickering with static. The energy in the room shifted like a storm breaking loose. Mark shielded his eyes, struggling to see. Lyra's voice echoed, strange and layered. Not just a child's voice, but something older. "Leave us." The light dimmed. The soldiers staggered, shaken but not defeated. Their leader growled through his helmet. "She has awakened. The signal is true." He pointed at Lyra. "Take her alive." Mark forced himself to stand, his body aching. He grabbed a fallen drone and hurled it at the soldier. The drone exploded in sparks, knocking the armored figure backward. Smoke filled the air again. He stumbled to Lyra's side, gripping her shoulder. "We have to move," he whispered, his voice rough. "Now." They pushed through a side passage of the workshop, stumbling into the cold desert night. Behind them, the soldiers regrouped, their leader's voice carrying through the smoke. "They cannot escape. The order will not allow it." Mark and Lyra ran into the shadows, the sand crunching under their feet. The stars above stretched endless, silent witnesses to the chase that had just begun. Lyra clutched his hand tightly, her voice breaking. "Mark, who are they? Why do they want me?" He glanced back at the faint glow of the workshop, flames licking its walls. His jaw tightened. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I'll find out. And until then, they won't have you." The desert winds howled around them, carrying the faint sound of soldiers moving in the dark. The night was no longer safe. Shadows had come, and they would not stop. The desert night swallowed Mark and Lyra as they fled from the soldiers. The wind carried sand across their faces, sharp as glass. Behind them, the workshop burned, flames spitting out through broken walls. The machines Mark had spent years building were nothing but sparks and smoke. Lyra clutched his hand, gasping for breath. "Mark, where do we go?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, and the visor in her grip pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Mark scanned the dark horizon. His ribs ached from the soldier's blow, and every breath felt like fire in his chest. But he forced himself to stand, tall. "Not far," he said. "We can't run forever. We make a stand." They circled back through narrow alleys until the glow of the burning workshop faded. Finally, Mark stopped behind a row of storage crates. His mind was already working. Calculating, his workshop was gone, but he still had what mattered: his mind and his machines. He pulled open an old crate and revealed hidden supplies, small drones, EMP charges, and a portable shield generator he had never finished. He worked quickly, setting the traps around the area. His hands moved fast, even as sweat poured down his face. Lyra watched him with wide eyes. "You're preparing for a fight," she whispered. Mark met her gaze, his expression hard. "They'll come. They won't stop until they have you, so we don't wait for them inside. We fight them here." Her small fingers tightened around the visor. "But Mark, they're soldiers, trained and powerful. You're just one human." He gave a faint smile, tired but determined. "One human who doesn't like to lose." The first sound of boots came soon after. Echoes carried through the alleys, steady, heavy, unhurried. The soldiers were hunting, and they knew their prey was near. Mark crouched low, pressing a button. On his controller, a faint hum filled the air as his drones powered up. Tiny red lights blinked in the shadows, circling like watchful eyes. Lyra shivered. "What if they kill you?" Mark's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Instead, he adjusted the plasma cutter strapped to his arm and whispered, "Stay behind me, no matter what." The silence broke with a sharp command. "Human!" The leader's voice thundered from the shadows. "You cannot hide. Hand over the girl and you may yet live." Mark stepped forward into the open, his voice steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The soldiers emerged from the dark, black armor shining under the faint colony lights. Their visors glowed red, their rifles raised, 4 against 1. Their leader's voice came again, cold and calm. "So be it." The battle began. Mark pressed another button, and his drones swarmed. Bursts of sparks lit the alley. Two soldiers raised their rifles and fired, but the drones darted like insects, weaving through plasma bolts. One drone slammed into a soldier's leg, releasing an EMP charge that made his armor spark and shut down. Mark fired his plasma cutter. The beam tore into the weakened soldier's chest plate, dropping him to the ground. "Advance!" the leader barked. The remaining soldiers spread out, precise and ruthless. Their weapons cut through crates, turning wood and metal into ash. Mark ducked behind cover, his heart racing. He triggered another trap, a mine hidden under rubble. It exploded, throwing a soldier backward into the wall. His armor cracked but did not break. Lyra cried out, covering her ears. The visor in her hands pulsed brighter, as if feeding on the chaos. The leader stepped forward through the smoke, unshaken. His armor was heavier, reinforced. His rifle hummed. "With dangerous energy?" "Enough tricks, human," he growled. Mark gritted his teeth, firing again, but the leader deflected the shot with a shield projector on his arm. The blast ricocheted, burning through the wall beside Lyra. She screamed, stumbling backward. The leader's visor locked on her. "The girl is mine," he declared. He raised his weapon. "No," Mark roared. He hurled his last drone directly at the leader. The explosion knocked the rifle aside, giving Mark a heartbeat of time. He lunged forward, tackling the armored figure. Sparks flew as metal clashed against flesh and bone. The leader was strong, far stronger than Mark. Each strike rattled his body, but Mark refused to let go. His hands clawed at the helmet, pulling, smashing, fighting with every ounce of strength. "Run, Lyra!" he shouted, his voice breaking. But Lyra did not run. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. The visor pulsed like a living thing. The crystal glowed brighter and brighter until it filled the alley with blinding white light. The soldiers staggered, their visors flickering. The leader cursed, struggling to rip free of Mark's grip. Lyra's voice rang out, strange and powerful. "Leave us!" The light burst outward in a wave, the air cracked like thunder. For a moment, the alley was filled with pure radiance, then silence. When the light faded, the soldiers lay scattered, their armor sparking, groaning but alive. The leader knelt. His helmet cracked, his voice was low but sharp with rage. "She has awakened. The order will not stop, human. You cannot protect her." Mark stood panting, his body broken but unyielding. He raised his weapon again, though his arms shook. "Then let them come," he said, his voice cold. "I'll fight every last one." The leader glared, then gave a signal. The soldiers retreated into the shadows, leaving only their threat hanging in the air. Mark turned to Lyra, who collapsed into his arms. Her eyes glowed faintly, even without the visor. "Mark," she whispered weakly. "What's happening to me?" He held her close, staring into the dark horizon where the soldiers vanished, his jaw set. "I don't know," he said, "but I promise you this. No one will take you while I breathe." The siege had ended for now, but Mark knew it was only the beginning. The real war was still coming. The alley was quiet after the soldiers retreated. Smoke drifted from shattered drones and broken walls. Mark's chest rose and fell with sharp, painful breaths. His ribs felt like they were cracked. His hands burned from gripping the plasma cutter too tightly, but his eyes never left Lyra. She lay slumped against him, the visor dimmed in her lap. Her pale blue skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, and her cloudy eyes shimmered with a strange inner light. "Stay with me," Mark whispered, shaking her. Gently, Lyra blinked slowly, her voice faint. I felt something. It wasn't me, Mark. It was like something inside me woke up." Mark swallowed hard. He wanted to comfort her, but the truth pressed heavy in his chest. That light, that voice. It wasn't normal. It wasn't human. And it wasn't just alien tech. It was something greater, something ancient. Before he could speak, a voice came from the shadows. "You finally see it too. Human." Mark spun, raising his weapon. A figure stepped forward, not armored like the soldiers but cloaked in dusty robes. It was the same old alien merchant who had warned him in the market. His cracked horns caught the moonlight and his pale eyes watched them calmly. "You followed us," Mark growled. The old alien raised a hand. "Not to harm, but to explain. The girl must know what she is." His eyes shifted to Lyra. "And you, human, must understand the danger you have unleashed, Mark." kept his weapon steady. "Talk," he demanded. The old alien's voice was low, almost reverent. "That child is not ordinary. She is the last blood of the Starborn line, a people long thought lost, a people whose eyes once held the power to awaken the celestial engines, weapons so strong they nearly destroyed the galaxy. To protect her, her sight was sealed at birth. Her blindness was her shield." Lyra's lips trembled. "No. I'm just a beggar girl. I don't belong to anyone." The merchant shook his head. "You belong to history itself, child, the visor you wear. It was no accident the human found the crystal. It was drawn to you. The moment it touched your blood, your sight returned, and so did the signal." Mark frowned. "Signal?" The old alien's eyes darkened. "The soldiers you faced. They are only the first. They serve the Order, a faction that hunts the Starborn. They believe her power can be used to control the galaxy. They will never stop coming for her." Lyra's hands shook. She pressed them to her chest. "I don't want to be a weapon. I don't want this." Mark lowered his weapon, his anger aimed at the old alien now. "Then what do you expect me to do? Hand her over? Watch her be turned into some tool for war?" The merchant sighed. "No. You have already chosen your path, human. You fought to protect her. That is why I came. There may yet be hope. But know this. Your fight will not be small. You are now against an empire's will." Mark's fists clenched. "I've never cared about empires. I care about her." He glanced at Lyra, whose small frame shook under the weight of her new truth. His voice softened. "She's just a child." The merchant stepped closer, placing something on the ground between them. A small device shaped like a star. Its surface glowed faintly. "Take this. It is an old beacon of the Starborn. It will lead you to the hidden sanctum where her kind once lived. Only there will you find answers." Mark eyed the device, suspicion heavy in his gaze. "And what's the price?" The alien's pale eyes burned. "The price is already paid, human. Every step you take from now will place you in the path of death. Protect her, or the galaxy will burn. Fail her, and it burns all the same." Before Mark could reply, the merchant faded back into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as he had come. Lyra sat in silence, hugging her knees. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I don't want this, Mark. I just wanted to see. I didn't ask for any of this." Mark knelt beside her, his voice steady but gentle. "I know, Lyra, but fate doesn't ask. It just gives us battles. We don't choose them, but we can choose how to fight." She looked up at him, her glowing eyes full of fear and trust. "Will you stay with me, even if they come again?" Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. "Even if the whole galaxy comes, they'll have to go through me first." For the first time since the fight, a small smile touched her lips. She leaned against him, whispering, "Then maybe I'm not afraid anymore." Mark's gaze drifted to the night sky. Stars scattered across the black canvas. Somewhere out there, ships were already moving, orders already given. The order would return, stronger, faster, merciless. But Mark didn't care. He had made his choice. The truth was heavy, but his resolve was heavier. He would not give Lyra to anyone. He would not let the galaxy decide her fate. If she was the last Starborn, then he would be her shield. The truth had been revealed, but Mark knew it was only the beginning of something far greater. Something that would change not only Lyra's life, but his own, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The colony slept in silence, but Mark could not rest. Not. He sat near the broken crates where his traps had failed, his plasma cutter resting across his lap. Every sound in the night made his grip tighten. He knew the order would return, and when they did, they would come in full force. Lyra lay wrapped in a blanket beside him. Her breathing was soft, but her glowing eyes flickered faintly even in sleep. It was a reminder that she was no longer hidden, no longer safe. She carried something inside her that the galaxy wanted and feared. Mark whispered to himself, "If they come tonight, I'll end it tonight." The faint hum of engines broke the silence. His head snapped up. Across the desert, black shapes descended through the sky, dropships larger than before. Dust swirled under their heavy thrusters as they landed outside the colony walls. Mark's chest tightened. They're here, he muttered. He shook Lyra gently. Wake up. It's time. Her eyes opened quickly, fear flashing across her face. Mark, she whispered. We can't fight them all. He gave a tired smile. We don't need to fight them all, we just need to survive, long enough to make them run. The ground trembled as armored soldiers marched through the alleys, their boots pounding in rhythm. Plasma rifles glowed red in their hands. At their front stood the same leader from before, his cracked helmet replaced, his voice sharp and commanding. Human, his voice boomed across the street. The order does not repeat itself. Give us the girl or every soul in this colony will burn. Mark stepped out from cover, his weapon raised. If you want her, you'll have to burn me first. The soldiers, fanned out surrounding him, their leader motioned with his gauntlet. So be it. The siege began. Explosions ripped through the street as Mark triggered his last traps. EMP charges flashed, sending sparks across armored suits. Drones swooped from rooftops, firing bursts of energy. Soldiers staggered, but they were more prepared this time. Shields absorbed the blasts. Rifles spat plasma that melted stone and steel alike. Mark fired, his plasma cutter slicing through the nearest soldier's armor. The figure collapsed, smoke rising from the wound. But another soldier lunged at him, striking with a heavy gauntlet. Mark barely dodged, the blow shattering the wall beside him. Mark, Lyra cried, clutching the visor against her chest. Her eyes glowed brighter, light spilling out. Stay back, he shouted, rolling to avoid another plasma blast. His ribs screamed with pain, but he kept firing, kept moving. The leader strode forward through the chaos, unstoppable. His weapon glowed with charged energy. You can't win, human, he growled. You are one man against an empire. Mark spat blood and grinned. Then maybe the empire should be worried. The leader raised his weapon to fire, but Lyra stepped forward, her small hands trembling as she placed the visor on her. Head Lyra, no, Mark shouted, but it was too late. The crystal inside the visor lit like a star. A wave of energy burst outward, blinding white light that shook the ground. Soldiers stumbled, their visors cracking, their rifles sparking. Lyra's voice rang out, layered and powerful. You will not take me. The soldiers froze as beams of light shot from her eyes, carving into the street. The ground cracked, walls trembled. Even the leader staggered under the force, his shield flickering. Mark shielded his eyes, his jaw tight. He had seen machines, weapons and war, but never power like this. She was more than a child now. She was something the galaxy would fear. The leader roared, forcing himself forward. You cannot control it, girl. You are ours. Mark pushed off the ground, throwing himself between Lyra and the leader. His plasma cutter clashed with the soldier's weapon. Sparks flew as human strength met alien power. You don't own her, Mark shouted, pressing with all his weight. His arms trembled, his ribs burned, but he did not give way. Lyra raised her hands, the visor glowing brighter. Mark, move. He dove aside just as a final wave of light erupted from her visor. It struck the leader head-on, blasting him backward through a wall of stone, his armor shattered, his body limp as he crashed into the rubble. The remaining soldiers faltered. Their leader broken. Their formation crumbled, and one by one they pulled back, retreating into the shadows. Their voices carried only one warning. The order will return. This is not the end. Silence returned to the street, broken only by the crackle of flames and the hiss of broken machines. Mark collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. He looked up at Lyra, who stood trembling, her visor cracked and smoking. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I just wanted to protect us. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. You did, Lyra. You saved us both. His voice was rough but steady. But now we know. This won't stop. They'll keep coming. She buried her face in his chest, her voice small. Then what do we do? Mark's eyes lifted to the horizon, where stars burned bright above the desert. His jaw tightened. We run. We fight. We survive. Whatever it takes, until the day the Order learns one truth. He looked down at her, brushing a tear from her glowing eyes. That no one takes what a human swears to protect. The night grew still again, but the war had only begun. The final stand had been won. But Mark knew it was not the end. It was only the first chapter of a much greater battle. A battle that would shake the galaxy. A battle he and Lyra would fight together,